They hit the Deathworld human once. The Academy never made that mistake again. The Galaxian Combat Academy had a rule that every instructor knew, every cadet memorized, and every species accepted before entering its gates. Never underestimate a warrior who has survived what you have not. The irony was that the Academy itself had forgotten its own lesson. For nearly 800 years, the Academy had trained the most dangerous fighters in the galaxy. It was not merely a school. It was a proving ground where species sent their strongest representatives to learn tactics, discipline, and warfare from civilizations that had survived conflicts most worlds only knew through history archives. The Academy did not care about appearance. It did not care about reputation. It cared about measurable capability, strength, speed, reaction time, endurance, combat intelligence. Every species had a category. Every warrior had a profile. The Karun were known for their overwhelming physical power. Their bodies were built like living fortresses, with muscles reinforced by dense biological fibers. The Velari possessed extraordinary reaction speed. Their nervous systems processed movement so quickly that most opponents looked frozen in comparison. The Oryxian hunters had natural camouflage and sensory abilities that made them nearly impossible to track. The Dravok warriors had survived on worlds where the atmosphere itself was hostile enough to kill most life. Every species had something. Every species had evolved because of something. That was why the Academy was confident. Everything dangerous had a reason. Everything powerful had a visible explanation. Then humanity arrived, and that was where the Academy made its first mistake. My name is Sarith Val. I was a combat analyst assigned to the Academy's evaluation division. My entire career was based on observation. I studied warriors. I studied their movement, their psychology, their fighting instincts. My job was to understand what made one species different from another. When the first human enrollment request appeared in the Academy database, I assumed it was an administrative experiment, a political decision. Nothing more. Humanity had only recently joined the Galactic Coalition. They were young compared to most civilizations. They had no famous warriors, no legendary generals, no ancient combat traditions recognized across the galaxy. They were not known for physical superiority. They had no claws, no natural armor, no venom, no enhanced senses, no psychic abilities. According to the initial reports, humans were average. That word appeared repeatedly. Average strength, average speed, average durability, average lifespan, average biology. The Academy had trained thousands of species. Average species rarely survived advanced combat training. So when Cadet Rowan Hale arrived, nobody expected much. The arrival platform was filled with instructors and students waiting to see the new human recruit. Not because they respected him, because they were curious. Humanity was a mystery. The transport doors opened, and Rowan Hale stepped out. The first thing I noticed was how normal he looked. That was the strangest part. He was not intimidating. He was not massive. He was not covered in armor. He was not carrying advanced weapons. He simply walked down the platform wearing a standard Academy uniform and carrying a small equipment bag. A young Karun cadet beside me laughed quietly. That is the human. Another student looked disappointed. I expected something different. I recorded the observation. Human appearance creates incorrect expectations. At the time, I meant that as criticism. I would later realize it was the most important fact about humanity. Rowan stopped in front of the Academy officials. Cadet Rowan Hale, reporting for combat integration training. His voice was calm, not arrogant, not nervous, just calm. Commander Verk, the head of combat operations, examined his file. Human. Yes, Commander. You understand this academy is not a normal military school. Yes, you understand students here are among the strongest representatives of their species. Yes, you understand failure is common. Rowan nodded. Yes, Commander Verk looked slightly annoyed. Most new cadets tried to prove themselves. They talked about their abilities, their achievements, their victories. The human did none of that. Do you believe you belong here? Rowan answered immediately. Yes. A few students smiled, not because they respected him, because they thought he was confident beyond reason. Commander Verk looked at him for several seconds. Interesting. That was the first day. Nothing happened. No fight. No demonstration. No impossible feat. Just a human walking into the academy. And somehow that was enough to make everyone uncomfortable, because nobody understood him. The first evaluation was scheduled 48 hours later. Every cadet received the same process. The academy measured everything. The physical assessment chamber was one of the most advanced facilities in the galaxy. The machines inside could calculate force output down to microscopic differences. They could test reaction time against simulated attacks. They could measure endurance under different environmental conditions. The academy trusted those machines. Everyone did. That was why nobody questioned the results. At least not immediately. Rowan entered the chamber. The first test was reaction speed. The machine created a series of unpredictable movements. For most species, this was difficult. For humans, based on their biological data, it should have been average. The simulation began. The attack indicators activated. Rowan moved. Not quickly, not dramatically, efficiently. That was the first thing that bothered me. Most warriors reacted with instinct. They moved based on their natural abilities. The Velari accelerated. The Karun powered through. The Oryxian disappeared into their environment. Rowan simply moved where he needed to be. The simulation ended. The computer displayed the result. The chamber became quiet. Reaction score higher than expected. The technician frowned. Run calibration. The machine restarted. Again, same result. The technician looked at Rowan. Have you trained before? Yes. What type of combat training? Military. The technician looked at his file. Human military. Yes. The technician seemed confused. Everyone knew human military forces existed, but compared to galactic combat organizations, they were considered inexperienced. The next test was strength. The machine adjusted automatically. Human. Standard gravity. Normal muscle structure. Expected output calculated. Rowan placed his hand against the resistance device. The technician gave instructions. Apply maximum safe force. Rowan looked at him. Maximum safe. Yes. According to the machine. Correct. Rowan hesitated. That hesitation made people laugh. They thought he was afraid. They were wrong. He was deciding how careful he needed to be. Will the machine tell me if I should stop? The technician smiled. Yes. Rowan nodded. Okay. He pushed. The numbers increased. Slowly at first, then rapidly. The technician stopped smiling. The display changed. Expected output exceeded. The machine adjusted. Again. Exceeded. Warning indicators appeared. The chamber lights changed color. Everyone watching became silent. Rowan immediately stopped. Is something wrong? The technician stared at the display. No. He looked at Rowan. Actually, something is very wrong. Rowan looked concerned. Did I damage it? The technician looked at the machine. Then at him. No. A pause. You didn't. And that confused everyone. because the machine was designed to measure strength. But it had never considered the possibility that the person being measured would be stronger than the category assigned to him. The results were sent to the evaluation board. The board reviewed them, then rejected them, not because they were false, because they were unexpected. And unexpected data created problems. The Academy had a system. The system had worked for centuries. The simplest explanation was that the human was unusual, not that the system was wrong. That was the second mistake. The first was seeing humanity as ordinary. The second was believing ordinary meant harmless. The third mistake happened during combat placement, and that one changed everything. The third mistake happened during combat placement. The Academy believed every warrior had a measurable limit. That belief had shaped every training program, every battle simulation, and every instructor's teaching philosophy. A Karun warrior could lift a certain amount. A Velari could react within a certain time. A Dravok could withstand a certain level of impact. And a human. The Academy had already decided. Average. That single word affected everything. Because when the combat instructors designed Rowan Hale's first practical evaluation, they did not design it to discover what he could do. They designed it to prove what they already believed. The evaluation arena was one of the largest facilities inside the Academy. Thousands of students watched from the upper platforms. Combat demonstrations were common, but human evaluations were rare. Everyone wanted to see the new species fail, not because they hated him, because they wanted confirmation. The galaxy liked things that made sense, and a harmless-looking species producing a combat candidate did not make sense. Commander Verk stood at the center platform. Cadet Rowan Hale will undergo his first combat integration test. The arena lights activated. A training opponent entered. Not a living warrior. A combat drone. The drone was designed for beginner-level assessments. It could adapt its movement based on the opponent. It could simulate different fighting styles. It could calculate weaknesses. The perfect opponent for someone still learning galactic combat. Or at least, that was the assumption. Rowan stepped into the arena. Across from him, the drone activated. Its artificial voice echoed. Combat simulation beginning. The first movement happened instantly. The drone accelerated forward. Many students expected Rowan to panic. Instead, he watched. That was something I noticed immediately. He was not watching the weapon. He was not watching the drone's arms. He was watching the entire machine. Its balance, its movement pattern, its center of gravity. That was unusual. Most warriors focused on attacking points. Humans apparently studied problems. The drone struck. Rowan moved half a step. The attack missed. A few students laughed. They thought the drone had malfunctioned. Then the second strike came. Faster. Rowan moved again. The third. Again. The arena became quieter. The drone increased speed. Its programming detected that the opponent was avoiding attacks. So it changed strategy. Instead of attacking directly, it began creating pressure. A series of movements designed to limit escape routes. The kind of technique used against experienced fighters. The machine had decided Rowan was more capable than expected. The students noticed. The instructors noticed. But nobody understood why. Then the drone made its mistake. It attempted a finishing maneuver. A controlled strike toward the chest area. The kind of attack meant to force a defensive response. Rowan did not block. He stepped forward. The entire audience reacted. Moving toward an attack was considered reckless. The drone's arm moved toward him. At the last possible moment, Rowan grabbed the mechanical wrist. The machine tried to continue its movement. It failed. Because Rowan had changed the direction of the force. Not stopped it. Redirected it. The drone's own momentum carried it forward. Its balance system struggled. Rowan rotated. One movement. The massive training machine fell. The impact shook the arena floor. Silence. Complete silence. The drone attempted to recover. It could not. Its systems were still functioning, but its balance mechanism had been damaged. Commander Verk stared. How did he do that? Nobody answered, because everyone had the same question. Rowan walked toward the edge of the arena. Is the test finished? The instructor responsible for the evaluation looked at the damaged machine. Yes. Did I pass? The instructor opened his mouth, closed it, then finally answered. Yes. Rowan nodded. Good. And that was all. No celebration. No victory pose. No arrogance. He simply left the arena. That bothered people more than the demonstration itself. A warrior who defeated an opponent and acted like nothing happened was difficult to understand, especially when that opponent was something everyone else respected. The rumors began immediately. Some said the machine had malfunctioned. Some said Rowan had hidden abilities. Some said human military training was more advanced than anyone knew. But the instructors had access to the data. They knew the truth. The machine had not malfunctioned. The human had simply understood it better than it understood him. Still, the Academy refused to change its opinion. Because admitting Rowan was dangerous meant admitting their entire evaluation system had failed. And institutions do not like admitting failure, especially powerful ones. 3 days later, the incident happened. The incident everyone remembered. The incident that changed the Academy forever. It happened during advanced sparring. The purpose of the exercise was simple. Students were paired together to experience different combat styles. The instructors believed exposure created improvement. A warrior who only fought similar opponents became predictable. So the Academy encouraged cross-species training. Usually it worked. Usually. That day, Rowan was assigned to train with Kaler Dran, a Karun upper-level cadet. Kaler was exactly what the Academy expected a warrior to be. Large, powerful, aggressive. His species had evolved on a world where survival depended on physical dominance. His muscles were reinforced. His bones were extremely dense. His natural armor protected vital areas. Among the students, Kaler was considered one of the strongest. He looked at Rowan and smiled. Not cruelly, not with hatred, with confidence. You are the human. Rowan nodded. Yes, I have heard strange things. Such as, Kaler crossed 2 arms. That you broke a training machine. It was an accident. That answer made Kaler laugh. Accident. Rowan shrugged. It fell. You made it fall. Yes, and you call that an accident. Rowan thought about it. I didn't intend for it to break. Kaler studied him. The answer sounded honest. That was what confused him. Most powerful warriors wanted recognition. Rowan seemed uncomfortable receiving it. The instructor activated the training circle. Begin. Kaler moved first, not because he underestimated Rowan, because he wanted to understand him. The first strike was controlled. A test. Rowan avoided it. Second strike. Avoided. Third strike. Blocked. The entire arena became focused, because now everyone saw something different. The human was not surviving. He was learning. Every movement, every attack, every pattern. Kaler increased his speed. Rowan adapted. The Karun became frustrated. Not because Rowan was defeating him, because Rowan was making him work harder. Fight properly, Kaler said. Rowan looked confused. I am. No. Kaler stepped forward. You are avoiding. Yes. Why? Because that is the point. The surrounding students became quiet. Kaler lowered his stance. You think combat is only about avoiding damage? No. Then what? Rowan answered, making sure nobody gets hurt. Kaler almost laughed. Almost. Then something changed. Because to him, that answer sounded impossible. Warriors fought to win, not to avoid injury. The next attack was harder. Too hard. The instructor noticed. Kaler reduced force. The Karun ignored the warning, not because he wanted to injure Rowan, because he wanted to understand him. He wanted to see the limit. The strike came. Vast. Powerful. Enough to break the defense of most students. Rowan blocked. The sound echoed through the arena. A heavy impact. Everyone expected Rowan to fall. He did not. But everyone noticed something else. The human's expression changed. Not anger. Not pain. Disappointment. And that was when Kaler realized something terrifying. The human was not upset because he was attacked. He was upset because Kaler had ignored the rules. Rowan looked at him. That wasn't part of the exercise. Kaler stepped back. I wanted to see what you would do. Rowan stayed silent. The instructor moved forward. Training is over. But Kaler had already made the mistake. He had pushed the human. And humanity had a rule that every instructor would later memorize. A human could tolerate many things. But when someone ignored a boundary after being warned, the response changed. Rowan took one step forward. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just one step. And for the first time, the entire academy felt something they had never felt from him. Not fear, not anger, control. Because everyone watching suddenly understood. The reason Rowan had seemed ordinary was not because he lacked power. It was because he was constantly choosing not to use it. Rowan took one step forward. The entire arena became still. For most species, that movement would have meant aggression. A challenge. A declaration that the fight was about to begin. But those who had spent time observing the human understood something different. Rowan was not preparing to attack. He was deciding what to do. And that was far more unsettling. Kaler lowered his arms slightly. You are angry. Rowan shook his head. No. Then why are you looking at me like that? Because you ignored the instructor. Kaler blinked. That was not the answer he expected. You are worried about the rules. Yes. You were just hit. I know. You are not concerned about that. Rowan looked at his own arm. There was a faint red mark where the Karun's strike had connected. Nothing serious. Barely noticeable. Then he looked back at Kaler. The point of training is to improve. Kaler waited. Not to prove who can hurt the other person. Nobody spoke. Because that sentence exposed something uncomfortable. The human was not thinking like a predator. He was thinking like a soldier. There was a difference. A predator wanted victory. A soldier wanted the mission completed. The instructor stepped between them. Training complete. Kaler did not move. His eyes remained on Rowan. You are strange. Rowan smiled slightly. I have heard that before. The audience slowly began leaving. But the instructors stayed. Because they had seen something more important than strength. They had seen restraint. And restraint was something the academy rarely measured. The academy understood power. It understood aggression. It understood dominance. But it had never considered that the most dangerous ability a warrior could possess was knowing exactly when not to use everything they had. That night, the combat analysis department reviewed Rowan's records. I was there. So was Commander Verk. The room was silent, except for the sound of data screens. His physical results are inconsistent, one analyst said. Commander Verk looked up. Inconsistent how? Every test shows higher capability than predicted. Then adjust the prediction. The analyst hesitated. That is the problem. What? The prediction model is based on human biology. And the model is accurate. Nobody answered. Because that was the part nobody wanted to admit. The machines were not failing. The data was correct. Humanity was the problem. The Academy had measured Rowan using the limits of other species. But humans did not fit those limits. Commander Verk leaned back. Run a complete review. The analyst looked surprised. Of Cadet Hale. No. A pause. Of every human record we have. That was the first time the Academy considered that maybe the mistake was not the human. Maybe the mistake was the way everyone looked at him. The review took 2 days. The results created panic. Not public panic. Not chaos. Something worse. Professional fear. The kind that happened when experts discovered their understanding was incomplete. Human records showed no single overwhelming advantage. That confused everyone. Because most powerful species had won. The Karun had strength. The Velari had speed. The Oryxians had senses. Humans had something else. They adapted. Their bodies were not designed for one perfect environment. They were designed to continue functioning when everything went wrong. Their ancestors had survived changing climates, dangerous predators, extreme conditions, limited resources, constant competition. They were not the strongest creature on their planet. They were the creature that refused to disappear. The Academy had mistaken the absence of natural weapons for weakness. But humans had developed something different. They had learned. Every failure became information. Every challenge became training. Every disadvantage became a problem to solve. And problems were what humans did best. The report was presented to the Academy Council. The conclusion was simple. Human combat classification requires immediate revision. But the Council still needed proof. Institutions changed slowly. Even when facts were obvious, they needed an event. Something undeniable. Something everyone could witness. That event came during the annual combat integration trials. The most important evaluation of the year. Every advanced cadet participated. Thousands of observers watched. Military representatives from dozens of worlds attended. The trials were not just competition. They were recruitment. The strongest students were offered positions in elite military units. Rowan was entered as an unknown. Many expected him to fail. Some expected him to surprise people. Nobody expected what actually happened. The first rounds were normal. The human won, not by overpowering opponents. That was what confused everyone. He won through movement, through timing, through understanding. He fought opponents stronger than him, faster than him, more heavily armored than him. And every time, he found another solution. A stronger opponent attacked. He redirected. A faster opponent moved. He predicted. An armored opponent defended. He changed strategy. The audience began noticing a pattern. Rowan was not fighting the warrior. He was fighting the problem. By the final round, everyone was watching. His opponent was Commander Arkan Thul, the same rivalry instructor who had doubted him from the beginning. Arkan entered the arena wearing full combat protection. Not because he feared Rowan, because he respected the seriousness of the final trial. The announcer spoke. Final match, Human Cadet Rowan Hale versus Commander Arkan Thul. The arena erupted. Everyone wanted the answer to the same question. Could the human actually defeat one of the Academy's strongest instructors? Arkan looked across the arena. You have surprised many people. Rowan waited. But I still do not understand you. Why? Because you fight like someone who does not want to win. Rowan looked at him. I do want to win. Then why hold back? The question echoed. Thousands listened. Rowan answered quietly. Because winning is not the same as destroying someone. For a moment, Arkan said nothing. Then he smiled. Very human. The signal sounded. The fight began. Arkan moved first. This time, nobody underestimated him. The entire academy watched. The rivalry was faster than before. Stronger. More aggressive. He attacked with everything allowed under the rules. Rowan avoided. Again and again. But this time, Arkan changed tactics. He stopped trying to overpower him. He started trying to understand him. The two warriors moved across the arena. One represented centuries of physical evolution. The other represented something the galaxy had never properly measured. Adaptation. Then Arkan made his final mistake. He pushed beyond the safe limit. Not enough to injure Rowan, but enough to test him. The attack landed. The entire arena froze. Because this time, Rowan did not move away. He absorbed it. And then he stood back up. Arkan stared. The human was still standing. The audience was silent. Rowan looked at him. Are you finished? Those 3 words changed everything. Because everyone understood. Rowan was not stronger because he could defeat Arkan. He was stronger because Arkan had already shown his maximum effort. And Rowan was still choosing restraint. The academy finally understood the mistake. They had never been training against human limits. They had been training against human patience. And they had almost reached the end of it. Rowan looked at Commander Arkan. Are you finished? The question did not sound like an insult. It was not a challenge. It was a simple question. And somehow that made it more powerful. Because everyone in the arena understood what it meant. The human was not exhausted. He was not struggling. He was not barely surviving. He was waiting for the other warrior to decide when the lesson was over. Arkan slowly lowered his stance. For the first time in his career, the rivalry commander did not know what action came next. Every opponent he had faced reacted the same way. They feared his strength. They tried to match his aggression. They tried to prove themselves. Rowan did none of those things. He simply stood there. Calm, patient, controlled. The referee stepped forward. Commander Arkan. The rivalry looked at Rowan for several seconds. Then he did something nobody expected. He raised one hand. I concede. The arena exploded. Not with laughter. Not with disbelief. With shock. An instructor had surrendered. Not because he was defeated. Because he understood. That distinction mattered. Arkan walked toward Rowan. The entire audience watched carefully. Many expected anger, pride, an argument. Instead, the rivalry warrior stopped in front of the human and lowered his head slightly. Now I understand. Rowan looked confused. Understand what? Why your species survived. The words spread through the arena. Arkan continued. I thought your strength was the dangerous part. He looked around at the watching students. I was wrong. A pause. Your strength is the least dangerous thing about you. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Every warrior here knows how much force they can use, Arkan said, but humans are different. His eyes returned to Rowan. You know how much force you should not use. That statement became the sentence repeated throughout the academy for years. Because it described humanity better than any scientific report ever could. The trials ended, but the real evaluation had only begun. Within hours, emergency meetings were called. The Academy Council gathered. Combat instructors, scientists, military representatives. Everyone had the same question. How had they missed this? The answer was uncomfortable. They had searched for weapons. They had searched for advantages. They had searched for the thing that made humans dangerous. But humanity's greatest advantage was not something they carried. It was something they had developed over thousands of generations. The ability to continue. The ability to learn. The ability to adjust. The Academy's entire combat system was redesigned. Not because humans were unbeatable. That was not the lesson. Humans could lose. Humans could fail. Humans could be injured. The lesson was something much simpler. Never judge a species by what it lacks. The Academy changed its evaluation protocols. Species were no longer ranked only by natural abilities. Adaptability became a major category. Problem-solving under pressure became a combat measurement. Restraint became a recognized warrior trait. And a new warning was placed in every advanced training chamber. Not a warning about humans. A warning about assumptions. Visible power is not the only form of danger. Years later, I became the director of combat analysis. I kept the original reports from Rowan Hale's first days at the Academy. The failed strength test. The broken training machine. The combat trial recordings. The moment when everyone realized the truth. Students often asked me about those files. Was Rowan the strongest warrior you ever studied? I always gave the same answer. No. That surprised them. They expected me to say yes. But that was not the lesson. Rowan Hale was not the strongest warrior. There were species stronger, vaster, more durable, more naturally dangerous. But strength was never the reason the Academy remembered him. The reason was what happened after. Because every warrior who entered the Academy after him learned the same lesson. A Karun student no longer laughed at smaller species. A Velari fighter no longer assumed speed meant victory. A Dravak warrior no longer believed armor made them untouchable. And every human cadet received the same advice. Be careful. Not because they were weak, because everyone finally understood they were not. The most famous moment came 20 years after Rowan's arrival. A new instructor was giving a lecture to first-year cadets. He stood in front of the old combat chamber, the same chamber where Rowan had first been tested. A young student raised a hand. "Sir, is the story true?" The instructor smiled. "Which story?" "The human who changed the Academy." The instructor looked at the chamber. "Yes." "Did he really defeat the strongest fighters here?" The instructor shook his head. "No." The student looked confused. "Then why is he famous?" The instructor answered. "Because everyone expected him to prove he was dangerous." A pause. "But he proved something else." "What?" The instructor smiled. "He proved that the most dangerous warriors are not the ones who cannot control their power." He looked at the students. "They are the ones who can." The galaxy eventually learned the same lesson. Humanity was not terrifying because humans were monsters. They were terrifying because they were not. They were explorers, builders, protectors, people who had spent thousands of years surviving against impossible odds and had somehow chosen cooperation over destruction. But when someone forced them into a corner, when someone threatened what they protected, when someone mistook kindness for weakness, they remembered something the galaxy had forgotten. A species did not need claws to be dangerous. It did not need armor. It did not need natural weapons. Sometimes the most dangerous creature in the room was the one that had spent its entire existence learning exactly how much power it needed to survive. The Galaxian Combat Academy recorded thousands of battles throughout its history. Victories, defeats, championships, wars, but only one incident received its own permanent classification. Not because of who won, not because of who lost, because of what everyone learned. The day the Academy hit the Deathworld human once. And the day it never made that mistake again.